What is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Bleacher Report this evening, and we are going to react to what we heard from Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman at the Combine. All right, so where do I want to begin with this? I guess we'll start with the head coach, because there's obviously this major push, no pun intended, from some of these teams with the tush push. They don't like the tush push. They don't like how good the Eagles are at the tush push. They don't have answers to stop the greatness that is Jalen Hurts. So they complain. So they cry. So they want it banned. And Nick Sirianni, he stood his ground. I'm offended, he says. The amount of hard work, the amount of time spent, what we do on a day-to-day basis to try and perfect that play, and you're just going to wildly claim it's automatic when nobody does it like we do it? That's disrespectful. That's my coach. That's right, damn it. That's right, coach. Seriously though, think about it. Think about the time that they probably spend, countless hours of what to do from an offensive line perspective, what to do from a Jalen Hurts perspective, how to make sure nobody on the defense can do what they want to do in that moment. That's special. That's what separates good from great, great from elite. That's what makes you a Super Bowl champion. And because you can't stop it, you just want to put in a letter to the league to try and get rid of it? Forgive me, because obviously a lot of teams spoke today, and I don't remember exactly which team had this take. And I'm paraphrasing a bit, but it was a little something like this. And by the way, this was the talk of the town. It seems like every single head coach, every single general manager was getting asked about how you feel when it comes to this play. Now, some have brain cells. Some, unfortunately, do not have brain cells. But the one that I thought was interesting was, if it has to do with the Eagles' success rate, there should never be a world where it gets eliminated from the league because they are just better than you on that specific play. Now, if we look further into it and some of the details claim that there's a real injury risk here, then let's maybe open up that door if that's the route it goes. And you know what? Fine. Just from a logical standpoint, if there's a risk of serious injury with this play nonstop, forget what type of play it is, I'm always willing to have that conversation. But the reason why I'm willing to have that conversation with this puppy too is because, we run it all day. We run it every 4th and 1. We run it every single time. We run it 3rd and 1. We run it all the time. I don't see guys getting injured. So there shouldn't be a reason why this thing gets passed. I do feel that a lot of these organizations see it with the right mindset, that the Packers are bringing it up because they don't know what to do. And when it comes to the beauty of the sport, when it comes to the technicality of the game, there's a specific phrase I'm looking for here, but it's escaping me. And none of those two were it. But there's respect of the game. I'll lay it to you out that way. I don't know if some of these GMs and teams and head coaches are looking at the Packers thinking that, they're doing this for anything other than they just don't have the ideas to stop the Eagles in the NFC. And if that's the case, we can't allow for that to pass. Right? I mean, we do have to have pride when it comes to this game. Go back to the drawing board. Go back to the tape. The Eagles have been stopped on it before. It's not like they have never been stopped. all these other teams get stopped too. So there is a way to stop the efficiency. And what we can't have happen, integrity. That's it. Integrity. There's an integrity when it comes to this sport, an integrity when it comes to this game and decision-making and the beauty of this game and all of it. And if there is a general sense that the teams that are forcing it to be more of a topic here and the teams that want it to be gone, if it's really just because, hey, football-wise, we're screwed and we suck and we cannot bring down Jalen Hurts at all, then I'm sorry. We can't have those people run the asylum here. We can't have those people winning these type of battles, because if we allow this to pass, what's next? What happens when we come up with something that is so strong? What happens when we have a play that is elite? Think about it. What if a flea flicker can't be done anymore because it's unfair? What if trick plays are no longer a part of your playbook because, well, the other team may not see it coming, and God forbid the other team doesn't see something coming here. Hey, you know what? That can't be a part of this game. What's next? This could be step one of a disaster. So just something to think about. Nick Sirianni then went on to talk about, quote, an extensive interview process when it came to the offensive coordinator job. Now, look, I don't know how true that is, but they obviously have a ton of belief in Kevin Patullo, and I'm willing to ride with him too. There's no reason for me to doubt this franchise right now. Do I think they handled it perfectly? I can't say yes. But I do feel even if they did go through more of an extensive search for OC, I do think they would have ended up with this result being your offensive coordinator anyway. They wanted him. They groomed him for this role. Him and Nick Sirianni have been tight. This was always part of the long-term plan with Kevin Patullo, and quite frankly, his name has been around. If you've been paying attention, his name's always been mentioned. Hey, they really like Kevin Patullo. Hey, they really like Kevin Patullo. Watch out for Kevin Patullo. There's always that one guy, maybe two guys, that his name gets flirted around and danced around whenever there's natural progression made throughout an organization with the coaching staff. And his name was always brought up and always highlighted. And Nick also brought up, yeah, this man is going to be calling the plays. He's it. And I'm excited for it because I think there is a natural burn going on with the last two in-house hires with the Doug Peterson era and with Brian Johnson with Nick Sirianni a few years back. I don't think they like that narrative. I think they want that narrative to switch. Howie wanted the narrative to switch that Jalen Reagor and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside sucks and his drafting blows and he is garbage when it comes to the draft. He's only a cap wizard. He's only good at making trades. But one thing he's terrible at is draft picks. Well, that changed rather quickly, didn't it? All right, here's Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell. Here's Cooper DeJean, pick 6 in the Super Bowl. So there was once a time where that was definitely where Howie Roseman was with this fan base and with some of the media. Well. It's funny how things change once you pull your head out of your rear end and you start dialing in. Maybe they're sick and tired of hearing how we can't go in-house. They want to protect their in-house. So let's make a damn statement with Kevin Patullo. Let's see how that pays off. But I'm willing to ride for it. All right, I'm riding with it. So that was it from the Nick Sirianni stuff. He did mention others and some other topics in passing, but I thought his defending of the tush push was remarkable, a phenomenal job, and you can hear the passion in his voice about what goes into that play and the details that they spend a lot of time on. And think about the sacrifice you make in practice. If it is something that you drill home repeatedly, nonstop, 24/7, if you're spending X amount of time throughout the week, and then you multiply that by all the weeks, and you multiply that by the season, and you multiply that with training camp, and you multiply that with OTAs, and you just multiply, because you know when you do spend that much time on it, it hits with this type of efficiency. I mean, that's a sacrifice to other areas of your game. That's a sacrifice to other time or other things you could spend your time doing to improve other areas. It's not automatic. You shut your mouth. You shut your mouth. You call this automatic. If it's so damn automatic, how come everybody else stinks at it? So I like that out of my head coach. Attaboy, Nick. And then, of course, the new OC. Those were the two important pieces to the Nick Sirianni combo. Now on to Howie Roseman. One thing I loved hearing, and it's nothing new here, okay? My whole life there's been good offensive line play and defensive line play, but his obsession with O-line and D-line, when he brings it up like that, talks about it as an obsession when it comes to depth, when it comes to, guys stepping up and having big years, younger players. Obviously our mind goes directly towards Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith, and it's just insane. That's how you win football games. That's why the Eagles have the winning culture that they do. If you can't go man to man in the trenches, if you can't put that hand in the dirt and compete with the one looking at you right in the face, then you don't stand a chance. Then you're the New York Giants and your offensive line is Swiss cheese. There's a billion holes in it. That's not the case here. And look, you're going to have men step up, because one of the things Howie implied was when you start paying people a lot of money, you're going to need young kids to step up, and there's going to be time for it. And yes, our mind automatically goes to Jalix Hunt. What up, Big Pippin? That's what he said when he picked up the phone draft day. What up, Big Pippin? Yeah, here's Jalix Hunt in the Super Bowl. Here's Jalix Hunt in the Super Bowl being a dog. But now you might have more chances. You might have more snaps. You might have to go at it, especially with there being an unknown with Brandon Graham, especially thinking that Josh Sweat is out of here. There's also some opportunities opening up with the defensive tackle position if Milton Williams does head to a different team in free agency and gets the bag. And this dude's rocking a Clutch Sports hoodie on locker cleanout day as soon as the season ends, knowing that he's going to have interest, knowing that there are teams that are calling his agency. He's rock. You can't be more branded towards I'm willing to go chase a bag than wearing a Clutch Sports hoodie. It's like if you were in baseball and you wore a hoodie that just had a picture of Scott Boris's face on your chest. Okay? So what if it's a Jomo? What if it's Jalix Hunt? What if it's Nolan Smith after he returns from the tricep injury that he managed to still play through during the Super Bowl? I mean, what? Partying through it? What? That's a savage. That's what that is. All right, so Howie was asked about Myles Garrett. Now, he laughed a little bit, and Elliot Shore Parks of WIP asked him, and he goes, how long have you been around? That was Howie's response. And then Elliot goes, long enough to know that I probably shouldn't have asked that question, right? Because obviously Myles Garrett is under contract with a different team. Howie's not just going to stand up to the podium and say, yeah, Myles Garrett, I'm going to get that dude. I'm going to go get the guy where over the last few seasons, 14 sacks was his bad year. What's his down year? 14 sacks is the down year. Yeah. Hey, I'm just going to walk up and say, that's my guy. So he gives you the GM speak of, listen up, fans. I promise you, if there's a game wrecker, if there's a player who is sensational, I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to pick up the phone. Hell, Howie Roseman is so sharp, and Howie Roseman is so hungry, and Howie Roseman is so determined that even if there are players who can't even make a damn impact, he's checking in on those guys too. He checks in on everybody just to see what the hell is going on out there. So, hey, trust me, There was never an ounce of my body, Howie, where I thought you weren't going to be locked in to see what's happening with Cleveland, of all places, knowing, the GM over there. Hey, what do we got going? I think they land him. I think they get Myles Garrett. This is Howie Roseman 101. This is what Howie Roseman does. And I'm not just saying that because every time there's a big name, we all get goo goo gaga eyes and we all get this lovey feeling, right? Because every time there's a big name, it's Howie, go get him, Howie. Yeah, but this one I do feel, listen, if you lose Sweat, you lose BG, they need help with the ends. And this guy, have you seen this guy? This dude, have you seen this man? Chiseled. Doesn't even do it, justice here. This man ain't slowing down anytime soon. Imagine what he could do next to Jalen Carter. Imagine being an offensive line. Imagine being an offensive coordinator. Imagine being on the other side of the football. Okay, so here's Nolan Smith. Here's Jalen Carter. Here's Jordan Davis. Here's Myles Garrett. Did you see how explosive this defensive line was in the Super Bowl? No disrespect to Milton Williams. No disrespect to Joshua. No disrespect to the Cats that just went out there and dominated without sending any blitzes. But imagine if it was Myles Garrett. Think what you can do not sending any blitzes with Myles Garrett. I got goosebumps. Here's the most interesting quote of them all. Howie Roseman asked for patience this offseason. Quote, it may look different. Some moves that we may have to make here may not be what are necessarily in other people's minds. It probably won't look like maybe the conventional wisdom thinks it should look like. So what does that mean? I just said Myles Garrett looks like Howie Roseman 101, and then my following thing is, hey, you gotta work with me here, and I need some patience because it may look different. But I think there's two different ways to look at that. When you can go swing on a big fish, when you can go make a big play like Saquon, you go do that. You go make the big splash. But when it comes to other areas of this team and sort of the outside of the star player, some things are simple. Wow, that guy is a stud. I'm going to try and go get him. And then there's other, like what makes you different from all these other GMs is sort of the second layer to the roster, right? I mean, everyone can go try and make a trade for one of the greatest pass rushers in the NFL right now. What do you do in the other areas of your roster? How do you attack? How do you find guys like a Zach Bond? How do you find guys like a like a Mekhi Becton, right? This guy was a nobody, and he was ready to no longer be in the NFL, and now he's a starting right guard and a Super Bowl champion and a flat-out workhorse. See what I'm saying? So I do think that when he's talking about patience, it may be more in respect to the other areas of the roster and not so much the Myles Garrett thing, if they do happen to elect to go down that road, if that makes sense. But, as someone who is very in love with Howie Roseman, someone who is very in love with the idea of Howie Roseman putting on that ski mask and having more robberies this offseason, I do know that it is going to be maybe a little different with the approach based off of what he's saying here, and I'll give him his time to cook. We know that he's not afraid to make a trade when maybe you least expect it. I know heading into the first week of the season, right, you don't know exactly what's going to happen. Boom, something out of nowhere pops up, and Howie does it again. To just allow for him to work his magic even when it's after the draft, whether it's whatever. You know how he does it, man. He does it at his own pace. But if he's asking for patience, it triggers that he's got something on his mind, and it's not going to happen instantaneously. This is going to be a slow burn this offseason. And the last thing here to bring up is he is going to have a, quote, concerted effort to keep Bond. And he was asked about evolving and how do you sort of respond to the criticism that you guys don't pay linebackers. And, well, I think when you win a Super Bowl and have a number one defense and an all-pro linebacker, maybe that changes perspective here. I mean, it's pretty simple. He went out and paid Saquon Barkley. When do they ever pay a running back that type of money? When are they ever willing to spend that type of dough, that type of cash on a running back? If the player is right, you do it. If the guy makes that much of an impact, you do it. So maybe all these other linebackers that they have trotted out there, the TJ Edwards and the Kaiser Whites of the world and blah, 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 you know, it hasn't been what Zach Bond's been. And if you can get someone like Zach Bond, I'm not telling you no. We have some real effort here going into this. So I can't rule it out. And I do believe in Howie when he says we do evolve. And we look at they always say this, I'm trying to be ahead of the curve. I'm trying to be ahead of the curve, ahead of the curve, ahead of the curve. And, you know, maybe they look at the way they attacked with Saquon, look at the way Zach Bond played. Maybe there's something to the evolving and getting ahead of the curve and this and that. You know, one of my theories is it became such a pass-happy league that you started to make these weird hybrid safeties in the linebackers, and now that teams had these weird safety linebackers out there because there were so many passing plays that you zig when everybody zags, and then you're able to break free, and now you see all these running backs becoming monsters again, and maybe this is all part of it, and then you get some linebacker play, and it can help translate, and, you know, just thinking out loud on a very vanilla surface here. I'm not diving deep into the numbers on what the league says about the hybrid safeties and whatnot, but that's something that I constantly keep thinking about. And if we're talking about evolving, that's what Howie Roseman does best. All right, that's where we are today. Some other notes here I didn't really get into, and maybe we can push along for another day. Jason Peters retires, which obviously, I mean, we talk about a weapon over there at left tackle. And some other news, but we'll hold off on that for maybe another time. We got a couple more shows throughout the week. All right, everybody, that's going to do it here on Bleacher Report. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me this evening, and I will talk to you all later on in the week. Go Birds!